Assalamu alaikum. Now that we finished Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas, it only makes sense to go over Surah Al-Ikhlas next. And Surah Al-Ikhlas, also known as Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad, it's a surah that we tend to like very much, sometimes more because of how short it is and how fast it lets us finish our prayer, instead of how powerful it is and the message that it brings and the love that the Prophet ﷺ had for this surah. So, in Sahih Muslim, in an authentic hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that Surah Al-Ikhlas is 1/3 of the Quran. So imagine, the entire Quran, just these 4 verses, these 2 lines, could be equal to 1/3 of the entire Quran. So that in its own shows you the power that this surah has, the power that the message has. And of course, it should allow us to strive to make sure that when we do recite this, we're reflecting, and also to make sure that we're reciting it properly as it should be pronounced, as all the letters and words should be pronounced, inshallah. So with that being said, let's go ahead and begin. After A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, we have here again, for the 3rd time, Qul. And remember, this might be getting redundant, but the reminder benefits the believers. We have Qaf heavy, Lam light. Don't make both heavy, don't make both light. Now here we have Hu Allah. So what I want to point out, we previously said that Lam will always be light except in one case, which is the word Allah. So here we have the word Allah, and anytime Allah is preceded by either a letter that has Fatha or Dhamma, it'll be heavy. Kasra, the Lam will still be light. But here, notice it's Fatha, so you will say Hu Allah. But just to kind of emphasize, the Waw is still light, the Ha is light, but the Lam is heavy. So don't make everything heavy, don't make everything light, rather light, and then transition to the heavy letter. And lastly, you have Ahad. Remember, Dal is one of the letters of Qalqala. Just like in Surah Al-Falaq, every ayah had Qalqala at the end. So does Surah Al-Ikhlas. Notice Dal, 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 Dal. And the other thing I wanted to point out, you might ask, what is this? This is actually Tanween with Dhamma. And this is how it can look like in one form. We'll go over this detail as well. So altogether, Qul Huwallahu Ahad. Assalamu alaikum. So now here we've reached the 2nd ayah. And while this ayah is only 2 words, there's actually a lot of room for error in these 2 words and a lot of common mistakes that happen as a result. So make sure you're paying close attention and that you're not making any of these common mistakes that we're about to address. So first off, just as we had here Allah, the Lam in Allah is going to be heavy, but as you're connecting these 2 words, don't make the hat heavy as well. Hat will always be light no matter what. So what I mean by that, the Sad here is heavy, and the reason why that's important, Sad is a heavy letter and it's a harf shamsi. What that means, if you remember our previous lesson, the haruf shamsiya are the letters, the 14 letters in the Arabic alphabet that when they're connected with alif lam, so al, you skip the lam and go directly to that letter. So just like Noon and Nas, same thing applies here, al-Samad. So as you're connecting these 2 words, you'll go directly from the hat to the Sad. So Sad is heavy, but hat should not be pronounced heavily. So don't say Allahu Samad, rather it should be Allahu Samad. And again, notice that I emphasized and I kind of held on the Sad before I went to the Meme. So some people make the mistake of just barely pronouncing the Sad then going to the Meme. So they could say Allahu Samad, or they'll say Allahu Samad. So say it slowly and make sure that you're pronouncing the Sad clearly and holding and stretching and emphasizing that shidda. So that shidda should be respected, should be properly pronounced. So this might sound kind of technical, but it's very important that we do these, that we follow these tajweed rules and follow these ahkam. And the last thing I want to mention, the Sad is heavy, but the Meme and Dal are both light. And of course the Dal is the letter of Qalqala, Qaf, Ta, Ba, Jim, Dal. So now altogether, taking all those into account, the way this ayah will be pronounced properly, inshallah, Allahu Samad. So now here we come to this 3rd ayah. If you notice, I'm trying to spend in each video just 1 ayah. That way we can go over each mistake very carefully, address it, and ensure that we don't make that mistake. So here in this 3rd ayah, there aren't actually too many mistakes as there were in the 2nd ayah, but the mistakes that do occur are just a result of people just pronouncing and reciting the ayah very quickly. So just take time out to recite each letter slowly, and inshallah you'll be able to properly pronounce and properly recite the ayah. So the thing I do want to mention though, the tajweed rule that applies, that we haven't really seen up to this point, is the qalqala on this dal, on these 2 dads actually. And what I mean by that we haven't seen, I know we've seen qalqala before, but here we actually have sukoon on the dad. So the tashkil is sukoon. Before, the qalqala was caused by us stopping and adding sukoon to that letter because we stopped. Here there actually is sukoon, so there's absolutely no way of not pronouncing the qalqala. Before, if we really wanted to, we could continue and say the tashkil. So if we continued and said the tashkil here, for example, we wouldn't have to pronounce the sukoon. We wouldn't have to have sukoon and pronounce the qalqala. But however, here there's actually sukoon, so there's no way of us not pronouncing the qalqala. So here we have the two qalqala, and you have two options in this ayah. You can either stop, so you can say lam yalid wa lam yulad. That's one option. So you pronounce both the qalqala the same. You make them both big and make sure the qalqala is very, very clear. Or you can just say it all together. Now, in both cases, you're still going to pronounce the qalqala. However, in the second case, if you notice, I'll say lam yalid wa lam yulad. In the second case, the qalqala on this letter, on this dal, wasn't as big of the qalqala as it was here on this dal. And the reason for that is when qalqala is on a letter that has sukoon in the middle of a word, it won't be as big of a qalqala as it will be on the end of a word. And that just makes sense because unless you stop, you're not going to be able to properly produce that sound of the qalqala. However, you should still say qalqala and don't neglect it. So altogether, this ayah will be, I tend to not stop, so I will say lam yalid wa lam yulad. Assalamu alaikum. So now that we reached the last ayah of Surah Al-Ikhlas, there are a lot of rules that we want to cover in this ayah, so make sure to pay close attention. First of which I want to go over is the rule of idgham. So if you remember the four cases, ikhfa, idhar, idgham, iqlab. Idgham is one we haven't gone over yet, so pay close attention. There are two types of idgham. Idgham will either have ghunna, idgham bi-ghunna, or without ghunna, idgham bi-ghayr ghunna. So remember, idgham occurs when you have one of 6 letters followed by a noon sakin or tanween, and these are yarmalun, ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, or noon. In this case, you have lam, so that's idgham. Now, to decide whether it is ghunna or not, it'll be one of 4 letters will have ghunna, which are either ya, mim, waw, or noon, or without ghunna, ra, or lam. So in this case, you have lam, so there's no ghunna. So now we continue. When you pronounce this, you're not going to stretch this. So don't say yakullahu, that's incorrect. Rather, you just say yakullahu, assuming we continue. Now here, this wow afterwards just means that you're going to stretch the ha. So it's kind of like you're adding a big wow, but they just add a little wow. So what I mean by that, you're not going to say yakullahu kufuwan. Rather, you say yakullahu kufuwan. So your mouth kind of stays round a little bit longer than it would for just having a regular dhamma. And again, here you have idhar, just as we had previously here on this tanween, followed by hamza. Remember, hamza is one of the 6 letters of idhar. And the other thing I want to mention, there's a dhamma on this fa. So I know you might think like, okay, I see the dhamma, but a very common mistake is people pronounce this word as kufuwan. So they say, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Rather, it should be kufuwan. So kufuwan. Very important. And one way to remember this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, and He even says so here, kufuwan. Now, of course, this is Arabic, this isn't the meaning, but this is one thing my shaykh would always tell me, and one thing I wanted to share with you all. So altogether, remember that you have qalqal on this dal. This ayah will be pronounced وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا